Hi, welcome everybody. This is the NAEA Art Media Tech PechaKucha. So we're going to be doing a series of short 5-minute sessions here. And these are always really interesting and fun. So they're all using different kinds of new emerging tech from different levels and different places. And we also just want to mention, thanks to everyone who submitted an Art Media Tech session for this year's conference. We had a great selection of different pieces. I want to just remind people again, if you haven't heard, we have some materials up in the front, and we give away a grant each year along with a series of awards. So if you're interested in either of those, please reach out. We're also having a new logo contest that we'll be launching, and we do a series of webinars each season. So this is actually our webinar for this season. So we're going to be recording this and posting it online. And our next one is going to be on artificial intelligence in the summer. So if you're not a member, make sure you just sign up. It's easy now through the NAEA site, and you're able to just, I think it's a $10 fee, but there's a bunch of different things you get. So without ado, I want to mention one other element. NAEA has a new CAN network, and I am one of the Connected Arts teachers, so each one of us will have to create our own PLC in the next coming year. So there's a CAN table downstairs, and my Connected Arts PLC will be focused on media. So if anyone is interested in that, you can take a look and write your name down to follow some of what's happening too. So I'm going to be the first speaker today, and then we will be off. So we can start the clock. So I'm going to be talking about art and artificial intelligence. Right? AI is a huge thing that's going on now. It will probably change the landscape of art classrooms for sure, along with the landscape of all of technology, I suspect. You can see my social medias at Tim Needles. So I am the AMT chair, and a lot of these ideas are from my book, Steam Power. So when I teach AI for students, I like to start with the positives because we've seen so many negatives. You know, Will Smith movies where robots are taking over the world. One of the benefits of AI is that it actually could save the environment. Code.org has a terrific series on AI and ethics, and AI and how it could actually improve the environment. So this is a nice way to kind of give students an introduction to how AI works. Code.org is just an hour-long session. Most students can do it in 45 minutes. They also have it for every level, so it's a nice way to kind of begin the program. And then we actually go out and use some of that and do some work with actual AI out in the field. So we worked with Mountain Zebra National Park, and they had photo cameras that were photo traps taking pictures, but they didn't have the ability to have someone look at all the photographs. So they crowdsourced it, and the students were able to let the AI know what was a zebra, what was a person, what was a poacher, and what was just a random other animal. And after that, we do my favorite thing, which is Quick Draw. So Quick Draw is a beta app from Google. It uses Google's actual AI, and you have to just draw something. It asks you to draw a handbag now, and I'm going to do this with a touch screen. And it gets.
I see rainbow. Oh, I know, it's handbag. I see lollipop, or nail, or giraffe. Oh, I know, it's wine bottle.
It's gotten very good, if you haven't noticed. These
I
are
see
not
squiggle.
laser drawings.
Oh, I know, it's saxophone.
I could barely finish before it knows what it is.
I see streetlight. Oh, I know, it's castle. I see mountain. Oh, I know, it's tent.
So what's nice about this is
I
it's
see
fun,
green
it's
bean,
drawing.
or sword. I see carrot. Oh, I know, it's rig.
And when I started doing this, you didn't get very many correct, but it actually shows you how the AI identifies each of the elements. And you go into the data set itself and look at the thousands and thousands of drawings it takes to identify AI. So here's 140,000 drawings of apples, and you can kind of see each one and how they work. So that's a really nice kind of fun way to introduce it. And then you can go to Magic Sketchpad and then co-create with that AI. so you could draw along with it. It's like drawing with a 5-year-old. That's basically where AI is at right now. So we did use it in interesting ways. Here's a piece I made with AI, if you just kind of glitch and keep going, just kind of see what you could do with it. The students had a lot of fun trying different drawings, co-creating with the AI. And then Adobe Firefly just came out recently. I asked it to just create a fun, creative male teacher who's an art teacher with pink sunglasses, and this is some of what it popped out. What I like about Adobe Firefly is that it doesn't use any copyrighted images. It uses all images from stock or non-copyright. And this is the photo version, which is not too far from, a self-portrait. So, Adobe Firefly is nice because in the code itself, it lets you know that it's created with AI. It comes with an AI tag. So it's not like students are going to, create work. It's a good way to actually brainstorm work. And there's other tools like DALL-E, Midjourney, Stable Diffusion, Lensa, which was very popular for a short time, Crayon, and Shutterstock. And the other thing I like about the Adobe Firefly is that you could do text. So here is a dragon thank you. So it's really nice for that kind of thing. Thank you so much. And I'm going to start. Our next one is going to be from Heather McCutchen, who is not here today because she's flying home. I'm going to cross my fingers on the sound.
Hi, I'm Heather McCutchen. I teach at Brewer Central School District in Herkimer, New York. Today we're going to talk about Maker's Mark. So this is a lesson that I created for students to be able to make their own 3D printed stamp for clay projects. Challenge your students to create their own 3D printed Maker's Mark today. Start by directing your students to tinkercad.com. This is the easiest and simplest way to create a 3D print design. Students should click New and 3D Design to open up their new board. Now you'll see an empty workspace. All of the tools are on the right, and the board on the left is where we start to create. We're going to start by dragging in a cylinder. The cylinder is going to be the base for the handle. I like to use 28 by 28. It just seems like a good fit. But if it's a little off, never a big deal. Add a second cylinder. This will be the base for the design. Once you have your two cylinders in Tinkercad, you can play around, make sure that they're on top of each other. One of the most important things too is to make sure that they're intersecting. You don't want them to be separated or else you will have two separate cylinders when you're making this design. So as long as they're intersecting, you have this all set. Now is when you can design your custom Maker's Mark or your brand. Now there's multiple ways to do it. You can create using the scribble or draw. You can also use the text. I like to use the text just because it's simple, but some students have really been very creative with this. Now, my initials are HM, so when they're flipped backwards, it still looks okay. But you'll notice that with a stamp, it has to be a mirror reflection. So the hardest thing for kids, and this seems to be the hardest, is trying to figure this part out. So I am going to use my daughter's initials, which are GM. And if we went to go stamp this in the clay, you'd notice it was backwards. So you do have to make sure that you rotate it, and you want to rotate it at 180 degrees with the top one. So we're going to flip it over, and as you notice, it makes it look backwards. So I have my initials, and again that they are rotated so they're backwards. Now you're going to take that design and bring it over to your stamp. So now again, it looks like it's in the correct spot, but that's where a lot of times you have to sit here and fiddle with it and play around. You want to, again, just like last time, make sure that it is intersected with it. It can hang off the edges. It could also be in the middle. But you want to make sure that it's intersected with the design. As the other part is really just the handle and the base. This is just to make sure that it's connected. After you have it just right, and again, I use just my arrow keys to make it move. Now it's time to download a MakerBot 3D printer right in my classroom. So once it's printed, students will be able to test it out. We usually try to all practice on one. As you can see here on the left, there's a fired piece of clay. On the right, these are a few stamps that students have created. The first few I have here are all correct. As you can see, we have WF, we have DAN initials, and my initials for HM. However, you're noticing that I'm adding more, and a few of them are wrong, like this one and this. That is something that I let students figure out. And this lesson also works well with other types of clay stamps. My students often use them for texture. We have a lot of fun creating, and students love doing their own textures. You can also use the stamps for printmaking, or even personal stamps or branding for teachers or students in their works. The possibilities are endless. Scan this QR code and you will have these step-by-step directions of how to create your own Maker's Mark with your students. I hope you all are enjoying your time at the convention. I did have to leave to catch a flight, but I hope you enjoyed my Maker's Mark lesson. Please share with me some of the exciting and innovative ways you are using 3D printers with clay. Enjoy.
So next up will be our own Kerri Parrish.
Can you go back to the QR code for just a second?
Oh, for the QR, sure. Well, all of this will be posted too. So we're going to post all of it as a video with all the resources. So don't worry about that at all.
Okay, I will try to do my best to stay on time. This is a secret, like a hint about my presentation today. We have a giant digital program, and we also have a smaller traditional program. Our traditional kids, the crayons, not really the crayons, but you get it, are super tech hesitant. No, tech's not for me. No, I'm not gonna do digital drawing. I like this, I like this, I like this. I don't do that, right? So in our tech track, we have a math lab, and we have Wacom tablets. Like, I can't get the words out. I'm worried about the time. However, in our traditional track, we have an iPad card in the classroom. So those are only used in our traditional classes, and we started out with 6. And so we went from using an iPad as a noun to using the iPad as a verb, right? I'm having problems, I don't know what to do. Grab the iPad, iPad it out, right? So I also teach a life skills class, which is where I use this tool a lot. Okay? I will put this stuff back up again, but I am high school. So I use the iPads to work with the hesitant kids to move from paper and pencil to maybe even taking that paper and pencil and putting it in the iPad. We use Procreate or Autodesk, and we do it a lot for iterations. It's a great tool to kind of get those kids to think about another version. What would that look like, where a traditional kid is not really going to be like, do 3 versions of something. I'm good. This is exactly how I wanted it. So we work on a lot of that. Kind of here's where we start. I teach them kind of the basics. We go through all the brushes, but then we end up creating kind of this abstract-ish piece. We print it out, and then it becomes something. So I take the digital, and it turns into traditional, because we work on top of it. We cut it up. We do things. Again, very low risk baby steps. I talk about balance, where we're putting things, how you're doing things. And we start and talk about symmetrical balance, but I do it with some other things as well. So not only just symmetrical balance. Then we get into taking that sketch and moving it into something where I can then do iterations from. My next step, you will see from Sherry, is to take this and then move into, maybe I could eventually be printing that someday. Like 3D printing, not 3D, laser cutting. This has been huge. You've all seen this project before. Again, this is my life skills class. They used to just paint them. They would jump in. I would try to have them plan. It didn't work. They didn't get into the planning. They just wanted to do. I just want to paint. This is how I like it. They had to come up with 2 or 3 different digital sketches. It took them almost no time at all. The sculptures looked amazing. They would never have come up with what they had on their sketches if I just would have given them paper. So that tool is the perfect, almost like freedom once they get to play with it and kind of see how to work it. And they were really pleased with kind of how they turned out. And in my hallway, we display a lot of the process. So with the sculpture also goes the sketch, so that people can see kind of how it came to fruition. We did a robot unit, and then I started having them, you're gonna do your sketches down on paper, you're gonna start with digital sketches. And so then they were less hesitant, it started to work, then we made our project, and so then we have a sculpture, that was project number 1. Here's project number 2. They took that robot and they did a Google Slides animation. So not crazy new media, but just a new way of looking at it using the iPad, and thinking about how you can elevate projects. I'm all about how can you start here, but then kind of take it to the next level with that one thing. And kids had a ton of fun with it. So that's my big thing is I believe that the iPad is a great tool for iterations, the tech hesitant, the kid that doesn't know what to do with the composition. iPad it. Take a picture. Okay, now what could you bring in there? How does that look? Grab a picture. Now blur it. What do you think? And there's no risk. Oh, I don't like it. You just, okay, start a new one. Try something different. And it's really changed kind of how our final products are looking because they're taking and it doesn't take a lot of time, but they can take those risks, but they're not really a risk. That kind of makes sense. The other 2 things that I like to share is I use Wakelet, and if you don't Wakelet, you should Wakelet. These are my digital art resources, and then I have a whole world of Procreate resources right there for you. Did I make it
Do you
time?
do 3D sketches?
Okay, good. What?
What program do you use for 3D sketches?
I don't. I just have them draw them in there. We're just using Procreate, but because we've paid for it. But you could use Autodesk. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. So next up is Dr. Kyungeun Lim, and she's talking about VR and AR, meeting Asian arts.
Hello everyone, my name is Kyungeun Lim. I'm an assistant professor of art education at Kansas State University in Georgia. This is my great pleasure that I can share my research and teaching practices with you today at Art Media Technology Group's PechaKucha session. My session is talking about virtual reality and augmented reality meets Asian, the STEAM-based curriculum for understanding Asian art. I believe you heard that virtual reality and augmented reality. So virtual reality and augmented reality integrated lessons are able to enhance students' spatial sense making. So the increasing usage of the digital technology in daily lives affected even tech-savvy students. So my research actually concentrated how to using virtual reality and augmented reality for art education and its potentials in art education. As an art educator, so I also confronted to needs to using new technology in my art education classes. To apply the recent development in VR and AR and its expands use in art education or general education, I am examining the following question. So how can educators adopt VR and AR in their curriculum to enhance students' immersive learning? So I have investigated the practical use of VR and AI by conducting integrated lessons using key elements of the VR and AR technologies, so including tracking real space and converting it into 3D to make a virtual space, or interactions between the virtual display and real-world immersion. So, when you heard about the virtual reality for art, you may think about tilt brush. So the tilt brush is kind of allowing that people can draw the virtual reality perspective art drawing using all 360 angles. So I believe you are familiar with the VR as a tilt brush tool. In my previous study, they're only using virtual reality for art classes. students had an opportunity to choose a site without the temporal, spatial, and monetary barriers, and to utilize the VR drawing tools without technical barriers requiring long-term professional training. So students actually can begin with the explorations of their interests, and the VR allows them to follow these interests and inspire them to create a visual artwork. So one of my students stated that VR was playful. The joyful experiences with a VR can influence the students to increase their concentrations on their learning and promote active engagement. So here's my question. As an Asian American scholar, I wonder that, so I can using virtual reality or augmented reality for helping students to understanding different cultures' art. So I bring the VR and AR and infuse it with the Asian art. So as you see, the Asian art also has its own characteristics, like they have monotones that are black and white, or using the different tones by using the amount of the waters. So here's some techniques or the methodologies using Asian art drawing tools. So in my class, I bring this approach, and students had time to practice to using Asian art technique. So I gave them students as a big theme as a nature, because many of our Asian art concentrated in the nature or the people's life in the nature. So this is one of my students just practicing Asian art drawing techniques. So students concentrated on the birds or the ponds or the waters. And then another student's work. The students combined it with the Asian art drawing with the virtual reality. So you see the background image is really not traditional type of drawing. So that is because they draw from the virtual reality. That these students combined it with a 2D drawing and virtual reality drawing. Here's another student's work. So these students combined it with a VR and AR for the drawing, so that the sun and another landscape is created by virtual reality, and the human, actually the students created by augmented reality, and they combined all the images in the Adobe Illustrator. So my conclusion, I just introduced my students' comments after finishing this activity. So one student say that after completing this activity, I learned how to navigate tilt brush with the virtual reality, and that is a new medium and pushes her to beyond her boundaries that what I previously thought possible for my artwork. I discovered how to switch between different brushes and environment to best suit my design. And by viewing my classmates' or Asian artwork design, I was able to expand my knowledge of cultural traditions. And another student say that there was a big learning curve of being aware of the space that you are drawing in. I also learned that VR can be great teaching tools to engage students. VR and AR made me think about Asian art more deeply and the process behind it. The integrated VR and AR and traditional art made me more motivated because I was excited to complete this project. And the VR and AR experiences was fun. Being able to try new techniques and new skills made me more motivated as well. Thank you very much for your watching. If you have any questions about my presentation or teaching practices, please email me at klim3@knsu.edu. Thank you again.
And the nice thing is, anyone that's tried any virtual reality drawing, there's a bunch of different tools available now, which is awesome. Nice. It used to just be one or two. So next up is Robin Brewer.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right, looks like some of my fonts didn't transfer, but it's okay. I think it's gonna be all right. I can do this. All right, well, hi, I'm Robin Brewer, and I teach at Garnet Valley High School, which is in Pennsylvania, near Philadelphia. And let's see, how am I getting it to move? Click,
You can use arrows.
down arrow? None of the arrows are moving. Woo,
Those.
I clicked it too many times. It wasn't really going. It's too angry at my GIFs. I say GIF. Drives my students crazy. Did I lock it up? So hopefully this will load up quick enough.
I didn't spend your time yet.
Oh, thank you, thank you. I was almost wondering if I should just plug in my computer, but then I'm not affiliated with the internet very well.
Yeah,
So that's not gonna help at all. I can certainly start talking, and then you can, when it pops up, we can talk about some of the images that I have in there. So my presentation is about doing a boot camp for our computer animation unit, and this course is like a labor of love for me. We did not have any kind of film or animation program in our art department when I started at Garnet Valley, so it was something I advocated for and I wrote the curriculum for. Let's see if I can go to that one. I'm not gonna try to,
Down arrow if you want.
okay. Yeah, I better just, I clicked it and it did not.
It's just like,
It's still loading slow. Anyway, sorry about that. And in this course, we do live action, filmmaking, we do stop motion, we do computer animation, but it's also very choice-based. So I kind of treat those a little bit in a boot campy way, and then at the end, they have a lot more freedom to explore something a little bit further and more in depth. We have a pretty good technology, access to technology. We have a one-to-one where students can get a Chromebook or they can bring their own. And just this year, they started phasing in MacBooks for all students. So our 9th graders have MacBooks and our seniors do not. So they're a little pissed, but it's okay. But I also have 13 desktop Macs that are brand new. And we have all the Adobe Creative Cloud. Like, we've got all the things we need pretty much, which is really fortunate. And then one of the things I like to stress is that we really focus on kind of like the cinematography of filmmaking and the storytelling part of that. We do have a tech ed department, and they have a film class, which is more like video, TV production, and so they're very more on the technical side, which is why it's technical education. So that's why I like to give them a lot of choice here. See if I can, I'm gonna skip that one here and go to this, if I can get it to pop up. I've got some really great examples. Okay, so when we start the boot camp, I ask them to take a look at the options. And the first option I give them is Adobe Animate. And it's kind of like leveled. So Adobe Animate is the most complicated. Let me see, I crashed it again.
You can just let it-
Yeah. Okay, so I give them Adobe Animate as a choice. Medium one is a program called Pencil 2D, which is free to download, and it's kind of like a little bit in the medium range. And then we use Wick Editor as well. Runs, it's web-based, so it runs on a Chromebook, so that's kind of handy as well. And then there's also, they can also propose something they'd like to use. I have a lot of students who are now animating in Procreate, or they like to use Flip-a-Clip, which I don't like because they have a little thing in the corner, but for something like a boot camp, and I just want them to get them working, it's something that they're comfortable with. So those are kind of like their choices in that. I also, trying to see what my next slide is talking about kind of the requirements for this boot camp is that after they kind of explore which of these programs is working for them, they're going to need to make a short film, 5 to like say 10 seconds, 5 to 15 seconds. I'm really flexible on what they need to do. It needs to have a background layer, it needs to have 2 moving items in it, and, oh, it loaded. Of course, I'm on the next slide now, but it's all good. They need to do at least 10 frames a second, so I let them slow down a lot, and that works out. The slide I can't see, let's see if I could just scroll this way, so I can kind of see if anything else is popping up. Hopefully we can share this out and you guys can see it another time. But one of the last things I want to talk about for the boot camp was it's sometimes difficult for students to come up with ideas. And so I do give them prompts that are optional, and they're really easy things like fish in the sea or whatever, just something to get them thinking. But there's a lot of kids like this one that you can see here that clearly already had an idea. He's like, yeah, I've got an idea, I'm gonna do this. Or if this one will pop up, this one's really freaky. It reminds me of kind of like Pink Floyd. We'll see if that one pops up. Otherwise, I'm trying to think if there was anything else on the last slide there. I'm doing this mostly from memory, so you should all be really impressed. And no, I think that's it. I think I just wanted to reiterate that I love doing the boot camps because it really gives them the comfort to work on something larger. Once we're finished, they get to choose the software that is best for them, and it just gives them a lot of more freedom and time to explore and experiment without the stress of telling a full story or anything like that. It's more like just getting in there and playing around. So there is also a slide with my info, but it's not there.
Robin?
Yeah.
How long is the time period and how long are your classes, just in terms of?
Oh, good, yeah. My classes I see them every other day for the full school year, and we have 70-minute classes. So.
How long would a boot camp last?
About 3 weeks. Yeah.
Thank you.
So
Thank you.
we will put all the slides in the.
Sorry, that was a little
presentation.
too heavy on my chest.
The magic of technology.
I know, right?
So yeah, we'll include all of the slides on the version that gets posted. So next up, we have Dan Lee, who's talking quickly about coding.
Hello everyone, my name is Dan Lee. I'm an art education academic specialist at the Michigan State University. Welcome to my presentation. My topic is talking about teaching visual coding in K-12 art classrooms. Why I think this topic is important in the K-12 art classroom, first of all, I think that learning how to code is one of the popular topics in the STEM education. For example, we need to write the coding for developing new apps on our phone. And I also see the trends that lots of secondary school, especially, we are career during lesson planning. I think there's a higher demand especially for the high school setting. The school want to offer more digital art components for the kids to maybe more easier, more straightforward to pick up a job in their future. And then learning about visual coding, I think is not just about to help to develop apps on the phone, but also can make some simple animation and video game, etc. That's the focus. I will provide you some example in my teaching to you today. How I teach about visual coding in my art education courses, I use the platform called the Scratch. This kids-friendly platform. We don't need to download this software online. It's pretty much a web-based software. And then once we went to start the account, and then we can sign the account, and then we can just get started. So pretty powerful. Even though we don't have a very powerful laptop, we still can use this platform to do some coding in there. At the beginning of the class, I will go over several important functions in this in the Scratch platform. For example, the motion, logs, sounds, and then events. So I will go over one by one with my preserver teacher, and then talk a little bit about what is how to view this grid, and then where they can find this grid in the background function. This is it is a block control the spy, and then you can see that we can change the name, change the position, change the size of the spy, and also change the direction of the spy. We can also make the spy show on the stage, or even we can hide the spy. So pretty much this block control lots of the function of the spy. And then moving here, we can see this is the background block, and then when we click this button, and then they have lots of the preset backgrounds for us to use, but definitely we can also draw some pretty background by ourselves. They do, in this platform, they do provide simple drawing panel, and then we can design very simple background in here. I can say about not that other ways we can do in other platform. This is one of the example of my Preserve art teachers scratch project. They picked a big idea by themselves. The teacher wants to make a birthday card for her student. So you see that this is the spine she picked, and then this is the coding she make specific for this dinosaur, this spine. So each of the spine, they have one set of the visual coding to control their appearance, to control their motion. Another teacher make pretty much is this cat are going to buy a tackle, this scenario. So this pretty much they're making some animation here. I put their animation link in my slide. If you are interested, feel free to take a look about their animations. After I teach this lesson in my class, and then I also asked the teacher to teach this similar topic in our Saturday morning art program. The kids are learning about, these kids are upper grade elementary school students. They are also pretty much doing the same thing, use the Scratch platform to make the animation. This is quite a successful program, and especially I think this is an excellent example in that cohort. They not just have the visual transition, the kids at the background, but also kids also feel very confident in recording their narration for their storyline. Everything is amazing. So the link also can be found here. Finally, I want to share a little bit about visual coding. Actually, we can teach this technique integrated with different kinds of subjects, such as social study, mathematics, language art, etc. And the earlier stage, we teach the kids about visual coding. Actually, I think we are doing more the job about making the STEM fields more equal, more accessible, especially for the girls. We know about this is lots of the boys, they are in the STEM field, but we definitely lacking lots of the women representation in the STEM field. So I think providing girls especially at the early stage, so that they can get to know about the coding, starting from visual coding as early as they can. I think that's definitely can close the gap about the equality in the STEM field. And I think I also teach I also assign this visual coding assignment as one of the assignment into my another university core courses called the Introduction to Women's and Gender Studies. That's for the students come from different major. They are taking these university core courses. It's also quite successful, and then it replaces one written assignment, and then give us even more chance to try different new things. I think that's amazing. This is the books I use for reference to prepare my lesson. I think it's, even though it's for kids, I think it's very straightforward. If you are a beginner to learn about how to do the visual coding in the Scratch platform, I definitely recommend this book for each of you. So thank you for listening to my presentation today. If you have any question, please feel free to email me. Thank you.
Excellent. And next up we have Sherry. So Kerri Kushner, who is our social media chair.
Hello, everyone. Let's see. I made this a PDF, so it would work offline. So if it scrolls weirdly, Sherry P at Twitter or Shoot Media. I post a lot of images on Instagram, so all the stuff is up there. If you want more, connect, please. I want to talk about laser cutting ideas for your classroom. Lots of different kinds of laser cutters. We were fortunate to work with Northwestern, which is right in our backyard, and they brought a full spectrum use. I never thought we could afford a $3,000 machine at a Title I middle school. We happen to have an art center, and I did some summer classes where I learned with an artist to teach a class for free for kids through a grant. And we used their laser, and I thought, all right, I could just go over there every now and then for a special project. And kind of that laid the groundwork so that when Northwestern was looking for a school to partner, we said, we would love to laser cut with you. So we had them used for a couple years. The Glowforge came to us through a partnership with Verizon. And the reason I'm telling you this is because we never could have afforded this. These grants kind of came into place. So if it's something that interests you, I will tell you now, I just bought this laser pecker. It's a hilarious thing, you'll never forget it. $1,000. And another thing that I'm not going to talk about here, but we make a lot of t-shirts using a silhouette cameo, like a Cricut, which is a vinyl cutter, and my students make apparel for all of our after-school activities and clubs. The students design it in Adobe Express. They take the logo, they cut it on a vinyl cutter, heat press it, and we sell them, and we make like $5 an item, and then we pile that money away so that when we want to buy something cool like that, we can do it ourselves. And the students love to have that choice to say, yeah, we want a laser cutter, we're gonna raise money. So they become entrepreneurs. And this is my 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. So this laser pecker over here, it has a rotary, which you can use to create images on water bottles, like with aluminum. And you'll see there's a little hose. I'm gonna show you my classroom, but this hose just goes right out the window. You don't need fancy ventilation. You can make it all happen in your space. So 2 ways to laser cut. We use Illustrator for SVGs, but actually there's a lot of free apps out there that you can use too, and that's like to cut pieces out. Raster engrave is like any image that's created as a JPEG. So we've used Photoshop, we've used Adobe Express, we've used Sketchbook, and the kids can just make a JPEG, save it. And Glowforge even has a feature where if they draw something on paper, it will scan it and then engrave it, so that's super cool. And those were our very first like laser cuttings at this art studio I told you. This is my classroom, and you can see we literally cut a piece of cardboard and shove the hose out the window, and they pull it in and out depending on if we're laser cutting that day. It does make the room smell like a campfire, but it's kind of cozy. When I've had kids with allergies and kids that didn't like the smell, we did buy a HEPA filter, which was like $80. Or I've moved kids' seats, or I just laser cut their stuff during lunch or after school at a time when kids aren't in the room. But acrylic, like engraving plastic smells a lot. Wood is not so bad, and I bet if I had like a proper vent with my buildings and grounds, it would smell less. We've used laser cutting with a makey before, so the kids actually go and scratch, like you saw in the last presentation, and create their own sounds, and then they actually laser cut the instruments. And what I love about this, 3D printers take a really long time. That's like where we started. Laser cutting is fast, okay? Each one of these is like 20-second cut. So the kid can design it, they go into Illustrator and follow 8 steps to convert the file into an outline as a vector, and then we cut it, and then they spray paint it, which they love. We put out a big tarp in our courtyard, and they spray paint it, and it's so fun and kinesthetic. And you can see them glue gunning this together, and all the students had a different proposal. This was like an open-ended, some laser cut project, some 3D printed. They could use foil or copper tape to make it conductive, and then they clipped it on the makey, which connects to Scratch and makes music. Here's some of our holiday time stuff. We do these playing with repetition and symmetry, and the 6th graders made snowflakes. And what I loved about these is we made a circle around them, so they had a positive and a negative, and I said you can take one home and leave one for school at the display. So this is our hallway. We had them all along the hallway. We put up lights, and it was very holiday and festive. Something recent we tried around holiday time is kids could go into Express, and this is just shapes. Okay, so this took like 5 minutes for this kid. He had a black background and he used white shapes, and you could just look up, you know, reindeer, sleigh. And I'm actually Jewish, so I made some cool Hanukkah stuff. We don't talk about holidays a lot, but if students bring that and they want to incorporate that in the winter time, I like the snowflakes because it doesn't necessarily touch on that, but those are things that we've done, and students love to make ornaments, keychains. These are gifts that they can give to their family members that they've made themselves, and you can see they spray painted. Those were like really cool ones and like hang them. Students also like to cut out their names, and this actually turned into a thing. Someone saw the students cutting their names and they're like, oh, we have a new makerspace in the library. Can you make letters for us? And that's what's happening on the right. It said shoot makerspace, and all of a sudden, like, we were imported to the school. So if you're like, how do I do advocacy to get this glowforge in my building? Well, we can make signage for, you know that hallway with the traffic and you wish the kids were going up the stairs and not over here? We can make you a sign. All of a sudden, they're doing something that's important. On the bottom, I had teachers that were getting married, and they got commissioned. All right, anyways, there's a million images here. So I know my time is up. We've made shoes. We've made things with lights and boxes. We've made acrylic lights up, and this is they learned circuitry a little bit. We've made stuff that they can use to solve a problem. Lights. I'll just scroll. Do I have like 2 minutes? No, I have 2 seconds. 2 seconds to scroll. Anyways, you can do everything with laser cutting. It's so fun. Let me know if you have questions.
Well, thank you so much. Thanks to all the presenters, and thanks to all the members. So we will put this